Blog Talk Radio.
And happy Saturday. It is House Talk pregame time, family. And I'm your empowerment coach and inspirational speaker, Dr. Lauren Pitts. As always, I'm so excited to have two of my three co-hosts with me on pregame, former scholar athletes Jared Johnston from Bowie State and Ronnie Ransom from Virginia State, my very own man-child, Andre Garlick from Drexel. So let me just tell you, Dre's not going to be able to join us until basketball season, folks, but you will get to hear his voice and get to know him a little better. But check this out. I'm super duper excited this weekend. House Talk pregame is all about family and showing much love to our HBCU family, student and professional athletes, and their families, and everybody who's invested in them. And we've been telling you all season long about how excited we are that House Talk pregame is now a part of the Heritage Sports Radio Network family. Can I just tell you, Dr. Pitts' birthday is on Monday, and I got the best pre-birthday present ever, and that is, first and foremost, I am humbled and honored to officially announce that our first pre-recorded show is making its debut on Heritage Sports Radio Network, HSRN, right now. It's like, fellas, we're competing with ourselves. We're debuting on HSRN right now at 11 o'clock a.m., but that's not all. That is not all. You'll be able to catch us every Saturday on HSRN at 11 a.m. for pre-recorded shows with rebroadcasts on Saturday nights at 10 p.m. So that's right. You heard it, folks. We have two slots on Heritage Sports Radio Network, and we are so excited about that. We're going to let you know when we'll be switching to HSRN from Blog Talk for our Saturday morning live shows. That is coming real soon. So we are hyped. We are so hyped. So needless to say, there's some great stuff coming down the pike, and there really aren't words to express how excited my team and I are about this. Jared.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Jared back again. Definitely happy to be back on the House Talk pregame.
We missed
as
you.
Dr. Fitz, I know, I miss y'all too. Every time, if I'm gone, I miss it. So I'm just glad to be back. Though, of course, they held it down. And all that news that Dr. Pitts, talked about is exciting. So every week we're going to keep bringing you this knowledge. And House Talk is on a whole new level than before. We're here to give you guys answers to all the raw times that we're currently living in. We know a lot of things are coming up, the election, things like that. So we're going to get down and dirty, kick you guys some real knowledge, be very transparent every show as we promised to, make some new discoveries and share our truth just as people to you guys that can relate to us. We know you guys care. We know some of you guys may be tired, and we have the answers for you. So it's time to optimize. You got it, Ronnie.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everybody, and happy Halloween out there. I hope everybody has a safe Halloween this year. Look, guys, we appreciate those who have called into the show during the live taping and things like that. We appreciate your calls. So during today's show, we will still be taking call-in questions and comments by simply dialing direct at 515-605-9744. Or email your HBCU shout-outs, questions, or comments to htpregame@gmail.com. Back to you, Dr. Pitts.
So one of the things that you've been hearing us do every week that is a big deal to us is we do a diagnosis of the week. And the reason why we decided to do that is in response to the mental health conditions that we're seeing in Black and brown communities all across the nation and all around the world. And in particular now during the COVID-19 pandemic and the sheer insanity that is going on around the pandemic, we know that there is just this exorbitant weight that is impacting our mental health across the board. We are not excluded from that. This pandemic is impacting all of us. Because of that, we want to make sure that we are educating and empowering you, our listening audience, as it relates to mental health and mental wellness. So we're going to be emphasizing every week the diagnosis of the week. So today, we're actually going to be talking about a disorder that some of you may be familiar with. We're going to be talking about dissociative disorders, in particular, dissociative identity disorder. Dissociative disorders involve problems with memory, identity, emotion, perception, behavior, and sense of self. Dissociative symptoms can potentially disrupt every area of mental functioning. Examples of dissociative symptoms include the experience of detachment or feeling as if one is outside of one's own body, and a loss of memory or amnesia. Dissociative disorders are frequently associated with previous experience of trauma. That's key. I want you to pay close attention to that. There are 3 types of dissociative disorders: dissociative identity disorder, dissociative amnesia, and depersonalization and derealization disorder. But again, we're focusing on giving you some insight concerning dissociative identity disorder. Folks, dissociation is a disconnection between a person's thoughts, memories, feelings, actions, or a sense of who he or she is. But listen to this. This is normal. It really is a normal process that everyone has experienced in mild form. You're familiar with daydreaming, or what we call highway hypnosis, or getting lost in a book or a movie, all of which involve losing touch with the awareness of one's own surroundings. When it gets complex, though, we know that it's linked to overwhelming experiences, traumatic events, and or abuse that occurred in childhood. Dissociative identity disorder was previously referred to as multiple personality disorder. So for those of you that might be familiar with the old movie and the remake of it called Sybil, where she had multiple personalities, that's what that is. So it is a real life disorder that plagues people. I have treated clients that have had dissociative identity disorder, and I will tell you, total transparency, seeing it on TV in a movie like Sybil is one thing. Seeing it up close and personal is something that will freak you out to the core of your being. It is scary to see. The client that I treated that was the worst had 6 identifiable personalities, and a couple of them were really aggressive and tried to attack me. So it's nothing to play with. The other thing that I want to share with you before I pass off to Ronnie is symptoms of dissociative identity disorder include the existence of 2 or more distinct identities, or what we call personality states. The distinct identities are accompanied by changes in behavior, memory, and thinking. The signs and symptoms may be observed by others or reported by the individual. Sometimes they'll refer to it as, I lost time. And you're like, what the heck you mean you lost time? But they really did. They are not consciously aware of what happened during blocks of time. They lost it. Ongoing gaps in memory about everyday events, personal information and or past traumatic events. The symptoms cause significant distress or problems in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. Ronnie?
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. So I wanted to read off a couple names of celebrities who have been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. Roseanne Barr is one, Adam Duritz, and then for our younger listeners who like football, they might have heard this name before but not be familiar with it. But Herschel Walker was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. He actually wrote a book about his struggles with DID. along with his suicide attempts, explaining he had a feeling of disconnect from childhood to the professional leagues. To cope, he developed a tough personality that didn't feel loneliness, one that was fearless, and wanted to act out the anger he always suppressed. These alters could withstand the abuse he felt. Other alters came to help him rise to national fame. Treatment helped Walker realize that these alternate personalities are part of dissociative identity disorder, which he was diagnosed with in his adulthood. And for those who are familiar with his background, he says it in his book and also his documentary where at first he didn't want to play football. He wanted to go straight into the military, specifically the Marines, and be an infantryman and go over there and, you know, kill as many people as possible because he was just had so much rage and anger inside. So while there's, you know, necessarily no cure for dissociative identity disorder, long-term treatment can be helpful if the patient stays committed. Some effective treatments include psychotherapy, which would be cognitive behavioral therapy and other forms of talk therapy, hypnotherapy, which is used in conjunction with psychotherapy. Clinical hypnosis can be used to help access repressed memories, control some of the problematic behaviors which accompany DID, as well as help integrate the personalities into one. Adjunctive therapy includes such therapies as art or movement therapy, which have been shown to help people connect with parts of their mind that they have shut off to cope with the trauma. And there are no necessarily established medication treatments for dissociative identity disorder, which makes psychologically based approaches the mainstay of therapy. Treatment of co-occurring disorders such as depression or substance abuse disorders is fundamental to overall improvement. Because the symptoms of DID often occur with other disorders such as anxiety and depression, medicines to treat those co-occurring problems, if present, are sometimes used in addition to psychotherapy. Back to you, Dr. Fitz.
Wow. I had no idea. So, you know, I have to go there because Herschel Walker played for the Dallas Cowboys. It raises additional questions, but also it provides some clarity regarding some thoughts that I had about him that I didn't know. I just did not know that, but that definitely clarifies some things for me. It's nothing to play with. So
not at all.
The other thing that we're really big about on Pregame is we take pride in loving all over our HBCU families. And because of that, we do shout-outs every week. So my shout-out this week is Xavier University in New Orleans, Louisiana, that was founded in 1925. Xavier University of Louisiana is a private, historically Black Roman Catholic university and was established when St. Catherine Drexel and the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament founded the coeducational secondary school from which it evolved. It is the only Catholic HBCU and the second Catholic university founded by a saint after St. Mary of the Woods College. The most popular majors at Xavier University of Louisiana include biology and biological sciences, general, physical sciences, psychology, business administration and management, and public health. Notable alumni: Nathaniel Sweetwater Clifton, born Clifton Nathaniel, was an American professional basketball and baseball player, because he did it before Deion did, he is best known as one of the first African Americans to play in the National Basketball Association. And on April 25th, 1950, the 1950 NBA draft was held. Clifton became the second African American player to be drafted by the NBA after Chuck Cooper. He was the first to sign an NBA contract. A second shout-out goes to Wilberforce University in Wilberforce, Ohio, founded in 1856. Wilberforce University can trace its origin to a period of history before the Civil War, when the Ohio Underground Railroad was established as a means of escape for all those blacks who sought their freedom in the North from the yoke of slavery. One of the destination points of this railroad became Wilberforce University. Did not know that. The university is the nation's oldest private historically black university named to honor the great 18th century abolitionist William Wilberforce. Affiliated with the African Methodist Episcopal Church, it was the first college to be owned and operated by African Americans. Notable alumni, they've presented a lot of musicians, but the top three based on research were George Russell, William Grant Still, and Tiny Bradshaw. Back to you, gentlemen.
I'm going to shout out two schools. My first one is going to be University of District of Columbia, which is also known as UDC, which a lot of people definitely don't know about, and I didn't know about it until recently, and I went to school 20 minutes down the street from there. But it's a public, historically black land-grant university, and it was established in 1851 as the Normal School for Colored Girls, which trained young black women to become teachers. And in 1873, because of the issues with it being a all-black school and for females, there was a school called Wilson Normal School, which was established for only white girls, and they were also taught to become teachers. And after some years, they both merged to create UDC. And it's also the only public university in the city, and it's also a member of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And some notable alumni from there, the first one is Thelma Thompson, who is the president of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And then another notable alumni, is Kathy L. Lanier, and she's the first female chief of police with the Metropolitan Police Department in D.C., and she's the head of the NFL security. And also Kathy L. Lanier, I looked her up, she's Caucasian as well. So UDC, I've been on campus before, and I never knew because it's so diverse, so you can't even tell. But the last notable alumni is Nadine Winter, who is the first African-American woman elected to council of the District of Columbia. And then Brian Thompson, he created the new $100 bill in 2013. He went to UDC for design marketing. And my second and final shout-out is Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. This one is located in Los Angeles, California, which I was unaware there was any type of HBCU all the way, that west of the country. But it's a private, historically black graduate school in Willowbrook, California, founded in 1966 in response to the inadequate medical access in the Watts region of Los Angeles, California, following the famous 1965 Watts riots. In the school, they actually partner with UCLA School of Medicine, and the medical students complete their first 2 years of medical school at UCLA. Then they transfer over to Charles R. Drew University to finish their last 2 years of clinical work. And the notable alumni from Charles R. Drew University is Dr. Patricia Bath, and she's a ophthalmologist. No, I might have said it wrong, but she's the first black female doctor to receive a medical patent for inventing a laser treatment for cataracts. So definitely small school, but I mean that's a major alumni right there, and it sounds like it's a real interesting school.
So much of our HBCU history that we don't know, and look, and we're scholars, right? And if we don't know it, how many other, how many more of our people are just totally in the dark about how robust our HBCU history is? Wow.
All right.
Absolutely. All right, so the two schools I'll be doing today, the first one is Texas Southern University. Texas Southern University was founded in the summer of 1927 as Houston Colored Junior College. So when they first created the school, the state of Texas wanted to have two separate junior colleges for white students and black students to help them become teachers. So that's how Houston Colored Junior College was formed. And because of its popularity amongst the African Americans and its growth, they eventually changed it to a 4-year institution in 1934, and it was called Texas State College for the Negroes. After students had petitioned for a name change, it was changed to Texas Southern University in 1951. Some notable alumni include Yolanda Adams, Michael Strahan, and Meg Thee Stallion. Texas Southern University has had 63 football players to play in the NFL, with 55 of them being drafted. So shout out to Texas Southern University. And the second school I'll be doing, which I did not know was HBCU until I looked up the list and confirmed it, is Virginia University of Lynchburg, which is located in Lynchburg, Virginia. Virginia VU of L was founded in 1886 as Lynchburg Baptist Seminary. It's a private Christian HBCU school. It was renamed to Virginia University of Lynchburg in 1996. And for some reason, Google was very disrespectful with not really having any of their alumni listed on their website. So Google, we need to fix that, because I'm sure they have alumni. But they actually do have one person who has played in the NFL. His name was Keith Lewis, who he went undrafted but was signed by the New York Jets in 2014, and as recently as 2017 was playing for the Detroit Lions and Kansas City Chiefs. So shout out to Virginia University of Lynchburg. Google, let's get some more notable alumni on there. We need to do better with that.
That's right. Very good.
I think they had Greg Toller, who played with the Cardinals. No, he went to St. Paul's. That's another small school in Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they unfortunately they shut down. I think 2013, I believe.
Yeah, it's sad when you see the HBCU shutting down.
It is.
Absolutely.
So
right,
we're going to get into the topic, your other self. Now that might kind of, be a little confusing to people. Maybe the first time that you've heard of it or actually thought of it. So we're going to, shed some light on that. And your other self comes from the book I wrote, From Cleats to Loafers, which is available on Amazon. And it relates to us as athletes, but also relates to other people in any walk of life, but how you come to a point where you have to find your other self in order to succeed or transition past whichever struggle you may be going through. And I'm going to read a quote about your other self. And I got it from the book Outwitting the Devil that was written by Napoleon Hill. I definitely suggest people, to check that book out. But the quote is, "Remember, too, that all who succeed in life get off to a bad start through many heartbreaking struggles before they arrive. The turning point in the lives of those who succeed usually comes at some moment of crisis through which they are introduced to their other selves." So basically, what we're going to talk about first is, finding our other qualities, and how meeting with struggles and meeting with a time of maybe despair actually allowed us to find our other selves and get us to the position that we are in today, which we'll talk about as well, and as well as the healing process once you do transition. So what's your guys' take on your other self from your perspective? And it's also be interesting with you, Dr. Pitts. You haven't played sports, but I'm pretty sure you can relate to having to find your other self in your career and life, as you, married and have kids and things like that.
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely. I mean, you all have heard me share time and time again on House Talk how traumatic my youth and adolescence and young adulthood was. And as a result of that, it was very difficult to stay in tune or even to be clear on who my authentic self was. So I lived life through this defensive posture, through this very guarded place that made it very difficult for people to really see me for who I really was. And they couldn't see me for who I really was because I didn't know who I really was. I had to go through a healing process in order to be able to get in touch with my other self, which was my authentic self. And what I did to do that was, one, I don't hide the fact that my relationship with God has been an integral part of my journey. And you'll see on my website that it has adversities equal stepping stones. And that was the transformation for me, was the day that I recognized that I didn't have to continue to stumble over all of the trauma and the mistakes and the craziness of my past. I could use those adversities as stepping stones, and it was those stepping stones that helped me to get in touch with my authentic self. And I touch on that in my book, The Queen Within, Becoming the Woman God Intended. Becoming the Woman God Intended is laid out in my book in the journey to getting in touch with my other self. And the long and the short of it is that I had to choose to stop being held captive, stop being held in bondage by my past and the trauma that I had experienced in my life.
No, that definitely makes sense. And another thing, as you do transition to your other self, you transition into another phase of life that was totally unexpected. They say that the chief cause of any mediocrity is purposelessness. So one of the most important things is finding a brand new purpose. That's going to, of course, come with a lot of soul searching that you have to do, spending time with yourself, finding out about yourself, talking to somebody, like we mentioned before. And Rodney, you of course, you had the football background, and I know we talked about how football was, your identity and, for your own personal reasons, just like a lot of athletes. But when did you come to a point where you kind of realized that you had other qualities that you're capable of, expressing to get you to a position where you are right now? Because I'm pretty sure you had to change to be in the field you're in and be able to lead people as well off of the football field.
Absolutely. For me, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, especially our episode Identity Theft. One of the things for me, I would say it took about a good probably 2 years before it really started to click in me that, I could close that chapter of not playing football anymore and begin that journey of, self-discovery and reaching a level of self-awareness to where, I had rechanged my identity. But that was not easy at all. I would say I haven't played football in the last 6 years. And over the last 6 years, I have continued to unlearn a lot of things that I was taught and was conditioned to believe as a child. And it's still an ongoing process, I'm still learning myself as I go. I'm, building confidence, building understanding, building patience within myself to understand that, I don't have everything figured out at this point in my life right now, but I'm starting to use a lot of the qualities of being a former football player in my everyday life. I would say it took me about a good 2 years to really understand that and use those skills and those life lessons that I learned playing football and to use them in everyday life.
Yeah, that makes sense because I was actually just thinking about it this morning because something had happened with real estate. I had a client, unfortunately, her loan fell through, so she's not able to get the home for, something that happened with her child, so it's totally out of her control. But in that moment, I had a decision where I could have been, of course, you could be mean, it's like, oh man, I'm not this close after all this work. But then I thought about on the football field, I may go to the field all summer with the receiver and put so many hours in, morning, day, night, and we're clicking and everything. And then in the game, it's 4th and 5, and we need, a first down to keep the drive going and win the game. And if he drops the pass, even though I put all that work in, I still can't come to him and down him. I can't come to him and degrade him or anything like that. And I looked at that same situation, I took it into real estate. I had to lift my client up and encourage her. So, like, when it comes to finding your other self, a lot of those things from the sport, they can transition. It's just a whole different way of expressing them. You're not on the field, so you just have to change it a little bit. And I think that's one of the things that's really helped me find my other self. One thing, I really didn't like to talk a lot. Even, playing quarterback, I really didn't like to talk a lot either. But now, I realize that I can be a likable person, whether it's in business or just being social and meeting people. And I never was like that as a kid. And I just think, like, man, if I was like that when I was younger, maybe some other doors could have opened for me. But I'm starting to tap into that more now, and that's another part of my other self. So I think it's something that a lot of people fear once they get into that point, but it's probably one of the most exciting things when you go through it and you realize, this reinvention that you're, doing for yourself. I really enjoy it after getting out of that fear mode.
Absolutely.
I think to that point, as you were talking, it made me think about how people find themselves bound to negative paradigms. And the negative paradigm is, similar to what you said, in that, you're that comfortable place of not doing a lot of talking, right? That fearful place is, even though it was a fearful place, so oftentimes it still provides a level of comfort for people because they're comfortable in their fear. They know what to expect. They can control that realm of their existence, and life beyond their comfort zone, I believe, where one's true purpose lies, that's scary. I don't know anything about that. And I think that is something that is a major, major, major issue among so many of our people because, life beats us down. We're dealing with systemic racism and all of these other oppressive factors that by design keep us enslaved in our mind. And what happens, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So that bondage that exists in one's mind becomes manifested in one's everyday existence and becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when people are deliberate and intentional and purposeful in their decisions to step out of their comfort zone anyway, excuse me, as cliche as it is, nothing beats a failure but a try. And I'm a firm believer that if it doesn't kill you, it will make you stronger. I think about Thomas Edison and the fact that he had 1,000 failed attempts at electricity before it got it. But aren't we glad he didn't give up?
I'm glad.
We have to be willing to step out of our comfort zone, and I think so many people don't, and that I believe that it's a residual effect of slavery. I believe that it is why so many of our children are stuck in this place of an impoverished mindset that manifests itself in the form of impoverished and ignorant behaviors because they don't have anyone affirming them and encouraging them to know with certainty that there is more and different and better that awaits you outside of what you see going on around you every day. Purpose is tremendous. I literally, at 16 years of age, it became very clear to me that my purpose in this life was to educate, empower, and liberate through speaking, teaching, and writing. And this entire life's journey has been adding to my ability to do that in a way that breathes life into people.
Right. Now, when you talk about your purpose, because I think that's something that's definitely important when you are trying to find your other self, is a lot of people struggle with, what's my purpose? What am I on this earth to do? Things like that. And I know everybody's experience is different, but like if you could give the listeners kind of insight onto what clicked in your mind. I mean, for them, it most likely may not be the same exact thing, but maybe it can, allow them to be aware. Like, what clicked in your mind when you were like, all right, this is my purpose? And you said at 16, that's a young age. A lot of people aren't even thinking about their purpose at 16.
And I'm going to liberate all of you. It's the formula. You're going to be like, wow, I promise you, you're going to be like, oh my God, are you serious, Dr. Smith? I never thought of it that way. It's an easy formula, gentlemen. And here's the formula. Look at your purpose within the context of what problem were you put on this earth to either solve or help solve. And what I mean by that is the driving force behind Lauren speaking, teaching, and writing is this: injustice and inequality, particularly where children and families are concerned, enrages me. Think about what gets the hair standing up on the back of your neck that makes you so mad you could snatch your own teeth out, and that will provide you with some insight concerning what your purpose is. And to expand on that further, so when you think about, and we talk about this on this show all the time, right? When the two of you as former scholar athletes think about some of the aggravation that you experienced in scholar athletes that really, truly burns you up, Jared, isn't it that your experience as a scholar athlete is why you're a published author now? Ronnie, your experience as a scholar athlete and some of the other challenges that you experienced in your life's journey is why you're a mental health professional. It's why you're on this show with us.
Absolutely.
Think about the stuff that pisses you off like nobody else's business, and then look at that within the greater context of your gifts and your talents, and look at ways to tie them together to be the change you wish to see in others. That's where your purpose lies.
I think, and I definitely agree. That was a very powerful way to put that, Dr. Pitts. And for me personally, like, one of the things that I always, and I've shared this before, I knew in high school I wanted to, by the time I was a junior in high school, I knew I wanted to be a counselor, but at first I wanted to be a school counselor. And the reason for that was because I saw so many of my teammates who were far more talented than I was and just had God-given talent and abilities, weren't able to reach the levels of playing football that I had because they simply didn't have a strong family system or even a strong support system. And it used to just break my heart that, you know, these talented individuals, these kids who were, you know, brought into these situations, not with any of their own will or desire to be put in these situations, were asked to find a way to make it. And oftentimes they couldn't do it on their own. And that used to just that was my one driving force to, you know, get through school and to become a counselor as fast as possible, because I said I never wanted to see another kid who had, you know, I hate using the word potential, but as a child, you have potential. Every child has potential. Yeah. And it takes a strong support system and a strong family, or as we like to say, it takes a village, you know, to help a child reach their potential and their dreams. And that was the one thing that was always driving me, was I knew I wanted to see other people have a family, have a support system in their corner, because everybody needs that. Everybody needs to feel loved. Everybody needs to feel that they're heard and they're respected and that they're getting their desires met. And unfortunately, a lot of people, especially in the African American community, don't get that. And so for me, that was I always knew that was my purpose. And for those of you who, you know, might not know your purpose here in life and things like that, let me tell you, you know, I always tell people, you don't have to have the world figured out at 15, 16, 18, 20, 25. However, like Dr. Pitts said, you know, whatever it is that, you know, that deep burning desire inside of you to want to see things change. Like she said, be the change you want to see. And oftentimes your passion becomes your job. And if you're doing your passion for work, it's no longer work. It just remains your passion, because you'll never feel like you're doing work. So for those of you who are still trying to figure it out, like I said, you know, even for us, you know, even for me, Jared, and Dr. Pitts, you know, we don't have life figured out either. We just have an understanding of it to this point in time, and we're still learning and understanding new things about this world and ourselves. So don't feel like you have to have your purpose figured out at 18 years old when you graduate high school, because that's just unrealistic. You know, that's not and that shouldn't be the standard for everybody to have it figured out by 18. Because at 18, you know, I thought I had the world figured out, and you know, God has a very interesting way of humbling you and showing you how life really works. So, you know, enjoy the journey and, you know, power through those struggles.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you for that, Ronnie.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify to Ronnie's point. I was the exception to the rule. Knowing at the young age of 16 is not the norm. So please, please, please don't let Dr. Pitts' experience stress you out and go, oh my God, I'm sorry. No. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Everybody's life's journey is their individual life's journey, and you'll know. You will know when it's your time to know, you will know. I merely just shared the formula with you to help you to get some greater insight. Do not allow Dr. Pitts' revelation knowledge of purpose serve as pressure to you. Before we move forward, I want to say, you know, folks, these conversations they're intense, they're in depth, they are much needed, particularly in these overwhelming and trying times that we're living in today. And to that point, we know that you care about these discussions. In fact, we're confident you are. So we want you to call us to join the conversation live during the show at 515-605-9744. You can also email us at htpregame@gmail.com. You can also download the HSRN app so you can listen anywhere by visiting the App Store or Google Play. You can search Heritage Sports Radio, hit download, and don't forget, pregame is now on HSRN at 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. on Saturdays. You can also help us keep these conversations growing and going by your sponsorship with a gift in whatever amount you can afford by visiting drlaurendpitts.com and clicking on the donate button. Or you can email us at htpregame@gmail.com to receive a sponsorship packet. We also, I think that it's really, really important to give space to my dynamic co-host to tell you how to get in touch with them and to utilize their services. But first, I want to tell you that you, in Andre's absence, you can check him out up close and impersonal if you're in the Atlanta area. He's at Landmark Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Morrow at 6850 Mount Zion Boulevard in Morrow, Georgia. And that's, just so you know, folks, for a driving perspective, it's 15 miles south of Atlanta down I-75 South. Jared and Ronnie, let them know how to get in touch with you and to take advantage of your services.
Go ahead, Ronnie, you can pop it off.
So, like Dr. Pitts said, and like I said, I am a mental health counselor, and I will be graduating with my master's in December from Virginia State University. So I will, in the state of Virginia, I will be considered a therapist. So between now and then, if you want to find me and find my companies, one of the companies I work for is Supportive Intervention Services, where I do mental health skill building, which is counseling services for adults, and intensive in-home services, which is counseling for children and adolescents. And my other company where I do therapeutic mentoring is Virginia Counseling Associates. Like I said, I'm located in the Central Virginia area, and I service the Tri-Cities areas, Chesterfield County, Henrico, Petersburg, the whole 804 zip code. So if you're ever in the Central Virginia area and you're looking for mental health support or professionals, please come find me there.
Yes, sir. Ronnie doing it big on the mental health side for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. No, I'm proud of both of y'all, though. And then, so for me, I currently am in real estate. I'm a realtor in the DMV area. I'm in my third year right now, so, definitely have my ups and downs, but, gotten to the point where I have the swing of things. And I specialize in buying and selling for clients. a little bit of investing as well, but solely focus on the buying and selling with my clients. And then also, as Dr. Pitts mentioned, I self-published a book, From Cleats to Loafers, which sheds light on the transition phase for our athletes post-athletics, which from my experience and others that I know, there is a struggle mentally, emotionally, physically that a lot of athletes go through. And speaking on purpose, I feel that's my purpose at this time in my life, to shed light on that. And definitely blessed for this platform to do that. And then outside of that, I kind of fallen into writing a little bit, hence the book, and then also working on finishing a film script based on that topic from Cleats to Loafers, the general topic. So, you know, as Dr. Pitt said, I feel like that's my purpose right now, next to real estate. But definitely excited, and that, you know, those things are something that gets me going every day. You know, that I feel every athlete needs to have. They need to have something to push them every single day, like a manifesto or something.
Nice. So, for folks that are interested in connecting with me, the best way to contact me is by going to my website, drlaurendpitts.com, and there is a contact page. You can reach out to me through the contact page. All of the information about the empowerment coaching, as well as if you wanted to book me to do inspirational speaking or training, you can book me through the website. You can schedule an appointment with me to do a preliminary free empowerment coaching consultation. So again, you can reach me through my website, drlaurendpitts.com, if you or your family members or someone that you know is interested in living the life that they love living and feel like you could benefit from some help doing that and putting some things in your life aside that have been creating barriers for you. So let's keep this conversation going. Your other self. Wow. What about healing?
Yeah. So back to you said what?
I said, what about healing? But go ahead. You say what you were going to say, and then let's talk about the healing aspect of this.
Yeah, no, I was going to get back into, you know, healing. We'll talk about that as well. I wanted to bring up a former player. He played with the Chargers. I'm not sure his last year played, but it was, I believe after 2010. His name was Paul Oliver. Not sure if you guys know him. Wasn't, you know, a big name guy, but let alone he was in the NFL, which is major. But he unfortunately shot himself and killed himself after he was detached from the sport. And, you know, a lot of people were saying his post-football woes, you know, factored into his death. And it's a real situation a lot of people deal with. And he actually did it in front of his wife and his 2 kids, which is, I mean, it makes it even, you know, more traumatic. And just reading the article about it, you know, and while we're on this topic of finding your other self and healing, I feel that if he was able to at least get started in the direction of finding him other self, if he was able to heal properly, I'm pretty sure he could have avoided that situation. His family could have avoided that situation. And, you know, his family was saying they believed that there wasn't a lot of people that reached out to him to help him in that time, because when he finished playing in the league, he went to the University of Georgia, but he left school early for the NFL, so he couldn't find a job. He didn't have a degree or anything. So, you know, that's just a real-life situation. You know, I just want to bring to the light for people to realize that this is a real topic, and we're here to help mentally, emotionally, physically. And, you know, as we're talking about healing, you know, there's so many ways that you can heal post-athletics or when you're going into finding your other self. I mean, one of the simplest things you can do is change, you know, the way you look at yourself or the way that people see you. And it could just start with dressing. If you know, dress the part, if you change your attire, you'll start to feel good about yourself. I know from an athletic background, and Ronnie can attest, I'm pretty sure, when I was on a college campus, I was wearing the warm-up gears, all that stuff, the sweats, that was my wardrobe while I was on campus. Like, I wore that all the time. You know what I'm saying? So
every day.
Saw myself, every single day. I still wear some of myself, but like you see yourself as that when you look in the mirror. The people on campus see you as that. They see you in that light. And when you no longer are playing, you're no longer an athlete. You gotta, the little things. Start by dressing, how you feel comfortable. If it's, dressing, up for, business occasions, things like that. That helps you with the healing process because you start to see yourself in a whole nother light. And it may boost your self-esteem, leading you into your path to find your other self. Other things is music. Music can be something that is healing for some people. Motivational music, whatever it is, those things can definitely help, and they've helped me a lot. But the healing process is definitely important. I think that we shouldn't neglect it. And I was talking to another guy who played with the Colts, and he was saying that if you deny yourself help after you finish playing, you're denying yourself healing. And I think that was, major.
Absolutely.
That's powerful.
I truly believe that too.
Wow. I think that when you talked about how you all dressed on campus, I think one of the key ways that people can heal, and actually I think you said this, I just want to expound on it. In order for those outside of you to see you differently, to see you as your authentic new self, right? It first starts with you. You have to see yourself as your authentic self, because what will happen is people will treat you based upon how you treat yourself. And if you still see yourself as that person that you were when you were playing sports, and everything about you resembles that, it's like, in Why Did I Get Married, where Marcus was just having regular conversations with them on vacation, but everything that he talked about was in a football context, and they were like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" Right? And it was driving them crazy because it's like, "Yo, you're not playing football anymore. Can you just be a regular human being and talk to us regular?" It's that mindset, right? That he still, because even though it was a movie, the way that it was depicted is that he was so in love with football that all of his identity was entrenched in all things football. And he had a difficult time making that disconnect and being his other self. So my point is that for scholar athletes and professional athletes, there's more to you than the sport. And in order for other people to fully recognize and embrace the part of you that's not the sport, you have to embrace the part of you that's not the sport. And it's going to be a deliberate and intentional act. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
And both of you all made great points. And sorry, Jared. I just like both of you all were saying, I think the biggest thing is to even kickstart that healing process is acknowledging that you need to heal. And Dr. Pitts, you would agree with this. When we talk to clients who come to us for mental health services, one of the first things in order to even start the process of treatment for clients is the client themselves acknowledging that this is an issue, an identifiable issue that they have within themselves. Because oftentimes, like for example, a client who's suffering from major depressive disorder, they can sit there and tell you word for word all the symptoms they're feeling, and you can check the box, and in your head you're like, yep, they got major depressive disorder. But getting it, and typically the role of a clinician or a therapist is not to tell the client that this is what you got, is to help the client to bring awareness within themselves to understand that they have this issue. So when we're talking about student athletes who getting ready to transition from being a student athlete to being just a regular, everyday citizen, if you're like Dara said, if you're denying that healing process, you're denying yourself a chance to really explore yourself and change. And that starts with you. And then we talk about, being accountable. And, even in sports, coaches used to always tell us you have to be accountable for your actions, your behaviors, and things like that. And that's no different for that transition process of healing, is you have to be accountable for yourself, because nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to, pick you up by the arm, or, tell you to pick your head up every single day, because you're so stuck on being that former football player or basketball player or whatever sport you played in college. Nobody's going to do that change but you. And it's not an easy journey, and I think Jared can attest to this as well. It's not an easy journey. It's not a fun journey, but it's absolutely necessary in order to discover that level of self-awareness and self-actualization to begin your next part of your life. Because, and we used to hear it when we were in Pop Warner and high school football, coaches used to always say, football doesn't last forever. But when you're, when you're a high school student, you think football will last forever, because from 16 to 30, that's a long time. You're like, oh, well, shoot, I got plenty of time to even think about life after football, life after sports. But no, it goes by quick. And once it's over, it's over. Football, for all my former football players out there, football is the only sport that you can't play a senior league in full gear. Otherwise,
wow.
Gear. We'll be collecting disability real quick.
Yeah, that is true. And then, like, the other thing is, I know when I stopped playing and I'm trying to find my other self, I worked a couple jobs. I was working at Nike. I worked at a dog kennel and things like that. So that was pretty tough for me, trying to find out an actual career path that I want to go in, which ties into, finding your other self. And, it's like you said, it took a couple of years for me to actually find something that gave me purpose and, made me want to jump out of the bed with no alarm clock and things like that. And I think for a lot of athletes, if you can find something like that gives you that energy where you can't wait to go to sleep because you can't wait to get up in the morning, and get after that career. And I think that's, like, definitely a way to go when you're trying to find your other self, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And Jared, let me ask you a question, because this is something I've talked with some of my former teammates about and things like that. And, and I'll be, very transparent with our listeners and things like that. For me, I'm very passionate about counseling. I love being a counselor. I love being able to understand mental health and how the mind works and behaviors and things like that. But I would be lying to our listeners if I said that being in the mental health field and being a counselor gives me 100% that same joy and passion as being a football player did. And, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it not, and I'm not saying it doesn't fulfill me, because being a counselor does fulfill me personally, because I don't do it to, necessarily fill a void or to fill a gap. I do counseling because I love being a counselor. I love understanding mental health and helping people understand mental health. But playing football is, 6 years later, still the one thing that just gave me that deep burning passion every single day. And I know, that might as well, that kind of, maybe go against what we've been talking about. But I'll be honest with you, football will always be, something that resonates with me the rest of my life. And I'll never stop thinking about football. But I love being a counselor too. And I wonder if you still have those same thoughts, struggles, even now, being removed from football.
Yeah, for me, at first there was, a few, struggles and missing the game and things like that. But, I got to the point now where I'm fine, I'm content. Like, I know what I did when I played. I know the effort I gave. But I also find a lot of, passion, if you want to call it, in coaching, which I never thought I would, because at a certain point I was like, I don't want to coach. I don't want to be that closely involved with the game anymore if I can't actually step on the field and play. But it's so much that I get out of it, just being with the kids and being able to share my experiences and being able to share their experiences and things like that. And then it goes beyond football. It goes into, being a father figure to some who may have a father, they may not have a father, or they just may not want to take authority from their father for some reason, and they may look to a coach as that person. And then, we have that responsibility to, lead them the right way and give them, the right examples and things like that. So I think getting into coaching was something that helped me because it got me back into football in a way that I never thought. But it's showing me some of the positive things that football does for our youth and the things that they can take into college, into the professional league if they make it, or into corporate America or entrepreneurship and things like that. So I try to just make sure that I lead the way for them, and that's another thing that, makes me get out of the bed with excitement if I know we got practice or, game day. And, of course, with COVID, it sucks a little bit, but, we're supposed to start up soon, so that excitement is going to come back for a lot of us. But, I get a lot of joy out of doing that, man. Sometimes even more joy than actually playing on the field, honestly.
You guys' take on this reminds me of, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, when the Eagles played the Giants, and they were talking to Michael Strahan, and he said, and it surprised me because he said there wasn't much that he missed about football, but he did miss going to Philly and lighting them up. Like that, that rivalry is one of the absolute best things that stays with him about football. But he said, I don't remember if those were his exact words, but it was something to that effect, that there isn't much that I miss about football, but he missed that Giants-Eagles rivalry and the energy that they had going into Philly to play them. And it's just like, wow. So it makes me wonder, what is it for former professional athletes, and even in you guys' case, for former scholar athletes that didn't go to the league, to have the level of passion and appreciation for life that they have? What did it take to get there? Like, I look at Peyton Manning too. I swear he looks like he is having a blast being retired.
Right.
He looks like he's having so much fun with Brad Paisley doing them crazy behind commercials. He's having a ball.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, I think it just comes down to, first, not being so hard on yourself. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even somebody like Peyton Manning, who arguably one of the top 3, top 5 quarterbacks of all time. As great as his career was, he still could have had some resentment and said, "Man, I didn't win 5 Super Bowls like Tom Brady did," things like that. He definitely could have been that person. But I think for me, it's just being at peace with yourself and knowing, I did what I could. I had fun. I enjoyed the camaraderie of the sport. And then also another thing is, just because you do finish playing, I think something that helps a lot of guys transition is bringing those relationships you have with some of your teammates, of course the ones that, are good for you and encouraging you to do better, bringing those relationships off of the football field into your life as you guys grow, you get married, you have kids. That brotherhood from football, which a lot of guys miss 9 times out of 10 more than anything, that brotherhood can still transition with you. And then you can, see your teammates grow. They can see you grow, and you can still have that companionship, so to say. I think that's one of the best things. And then also, you can go through that transition phase with them if you are struggling. You can help each other out. So I think that's kind of what, helps me get through it. And, of course, I miss the rivalries like Bowie State versus Virginia State. Of course, I miss those, but, it's fun when you get to watch it, though, from a audience and things like that. So, I'm not in a situation where I'm like, oh, well, I hate this. I'm not watching football. Like, I watch football. I'm gonna watch football tomorrow. The Steelers game. So, of course.
Oh yeah, and Jared, I don't think I wish they could. I wish people could really understand. Like, I know for Virginia State, of course, our biggest rival was Virginia Union because they're literally 25 minutes up the road. But for me personally, when we used to play y'all for Bowie State, man, that was my favorite game of the season every single year. Like, I loved playing Bowie State because I knew it was going to be a game. I used to always say, like, I always knew somehow, some way the game was going to overtime. Like, it didn't matter
Wow.
what our records was. It was going to over, and for 3 years it went to overtime. And then I think our junior years when it went to 3 overtimes.
Oh, wow.
But like Dr. Pitts. But when I tell you, when me and Jerry used to play each other, like those games were worthy of Game of the Year every single year because, I mean, you're talking about going through a range of emotions and reactions throughout a game, especially the fourth quarter and overtime. I mean, those games I always think about those games when I think about my playing career because those are my favorite games. I always loved playing Bowie State because Bowie had, I always, and Jerry, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I always used to say Bowie had by far the most talent in the CIAA every single year, and it wasn't even close.
Wow.
Like, but Bowie State used to be loaded with talent. I mean, absolutely loaded. And I used to just love playing y'all, man. So I agree with Michael Strahan about those rivalries. You know, having a rivalry like that always makes it worth it. You know, especially in your later years when you know, reminisce on playing football and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Like go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
And I was just saying, like, those weeks were, like, that week was different than any week. You know, once the game over on Saturday and, you know, you got Virginia State the next week, like, that Sunday morning practice, like, you better come with a totally different focus and attitude or you might get benched because that game is just serious. And then it's usually a homecoming game, and anybody out there who's never been to a HBCU, you know that you cannot lose homecoming. Like, it's like number one. That's king at a HBCU. And I mean, just while we're on that topic, for a lot of people who are thinking of going to HBCU or you have scholarships from the HBCU and you're deciding between going to another school, PWI, you know, I'm not here to steer anybody anywhere, but, you know, you do get that game experience. You do get that excitement at a HBCU. You can get that same feeling as a PWI. But, yeah, my take on it, man, I definitely miss that, but, yeah.
What I was going to say is two things, because you just said something else that made me think something else. When you were talking about staying in touch with your teammates and the friendships and stuff, you know me and my Cowboys, it makes me think of Emmitt Smith, Michael Irving, and Troy Aikman, and how close they are. Darryl Johnston and so many of that 90s era team, they're like brothers. They are thick as daggone thieves, and everybody knows it, right? I mean, even Deion Sanders has come into the fold for the time that he played at Dallas. It's a brotherhood, and I think you all have said that on previous shows that, you know, people have the fraternities and the sororities, but for scholar athletes, regardless of whether it's football or basketball, whatever it is, your teammates form, for you men, a brotherhood, and for the ladies, a sisterhood that is a force to be reckoned with. And I wanted to expound on that within the context of family. Jared, you said, you know, you're not here to sway anybody. Well, I am. I believe now, for real, y'all know how I get down. I believe now more than ever before, you know, I am not discounting any of the extraordinary educations that is offered at the Caucasian schools. I'm not disputing that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. We love them too. But what I do think that it's important to recognize is that I said to a colleague and to my fiance yesterday, I never thought the day would come in my lifetime where I would question if this is what it was like to live during the 1960s in the heart of the civil rights movement. I am not a fearful, scary person. I never have been. In fact, I've been fearless my whole life. But I would be lying to you, gentlemen, if I said that I am not nervous in these times that we are living in. And to that point, I believe that Black and brown family is more important now than ever before. I believe that now is the time when our students, whether they be scholar athletes or not, should be giving serious consideration to HBCUs to obtain their formal education and preparation for this world that we're living in that is proving to be more horrific every day. And oh, by the way, if I can reframe it, that's what we call it clinically. If I can put it within this frame, we've said on previous shows that there's this huge push for scholar athletes to go to Division I schools because Division I schools tend to get more looks from the league for the draft and for recruitment, right? But look at it in this context. The league is 75% black and brown players.
Right, absolutely.
They're going to recruit where you go.
Exactly.
How about that?
That's true.
How about that for a reframe?
They're going to follow the talent.
Yeah, they're following the talent. They're not following the school per se. They're following the talent. So just like we've highlighted and shouted out these schools that are producing 60 plus, 50, 40, all these scholar athletes, where the recruiters and the scouts going to go if all of these Division I eligible scholar athletes say, you know what, Dr. Pitts and Jared and Ronnie are right. We need to be looking at this within the context of athletics and family, and we need to go to an HBCU. What's going to happen then? They're going to stop recruiting us?
Right.
The devil is a liar.
Now, what do you think? Because I believe it will happen. But, like, what do you think as far as the time frame, or what do you think is going to need to happen? Do you think, unfortunately, it's going to take more of this police brutality that we're seeing blatantly? Is it more racism in the world that we're unfortunately seeing in front of our eyes? Do you think that is kind of like what's going to catapult that change?
I think that we would be ignorant to think that that's not going to play a part, but I really think the greater contributor, and I want to look at this through a solution-focused lens. I think the greater contributor is going to be exactly what we're doing, educating and empowering Black and brown communities through our show, through the work that that Ronnie and I are doing clinically, through the work that you're doing, Jared, through your writing and your scripts and your training and coaching and mentoring, and us continuing to expound upon this work on far greater platforms, which is exactly what us partnering with Heritage Sports Radio Network is all about. It's about positioning us to have these messages heard on a much broader platform so that we can make our mark, so that we can influence, and so that we can liberate people, and by providing them with information to make a well-informed decision. Because you said it, in many, many, many instances, the draw to the D1 Caucasian schools isn't that, hey, I'm going to get an extraordinary education at the Ohio State. It's not that I'm going to get necessarily an extraordinary education at Miami or at Florida State or at, you name them. We've got a whole laundry list of D1 schools. I'm not hearing most scholar athletes that I know personally and professionally talking about the education. They're talking about going to the D1 school because that increases their chances of going to the league.
Let's be real. On the flip side, a lot of these schools, that's their one reason they even recruit these kids anyways. Because not saying all the African American student athletes that go to D1 schools don't have good grades coming out of high school. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, we're not saying that.
However, historically, I always tell students, especially students who don't have at least a 3.0 while they're in high school, unless you are a generational talent or you just, jump off a highlight tape or a football tape on screen, you're going to need your grades to get into school. But those colleges, they could care less about, getting your education. The only big D1 school I can really think of that really enforces academics is maybe Notre Dame, Stanford, and those large schools who have, great football teams, but they emphasize academics more than football. And those are really the only two schools that really come to mind. The schools in the Deep South and in the Midwest, like Ohio State, Michigan, and things like that, great academic institutions if you're going there for school. But if you're going there strictly because if I'm at this school for 3 to 4 years, I can get to the league, that's their same mindset too. But they're getting, unfortunately, they're getting profit off of you while you're there, which is a whole other topic of conversation. So I think it works both ways. And I think, also to answer your question about how can we, also start to flip this narrative for getting students to go to HBCUs is alumni. It's up to us to also donate to these schools because,
to enrich their programs.
Absolutely. And, as far as a lot of the times when these kids go on recruiting trips to these big schools, it's not always necessarily you hear student athletes say, well, the coaches treated me like family. It felt like a family atmosphere on campus. I felt like I mattered. Oftentimes, it's also the facilities. I think a couple years ago, Alabama spent, over $100 million on redoing their weight room. They have every piece of equipment you can think of. They have a nutrition staff in the building. They have, multiple dietitians and things like that. Oftentimes, it's just that right there is what gets students to come to those schools. And it's gonna take alumni from these HBCUs. Like when we shout out these HBCUs and list off these notable alumni, every time I hear a school, like last week it was FAMU that Dr. Pitts did, and the alumni that FAMU had. FAMU has no business whatsoever ever being underfunded or not having enough money to keep this school running or continue to improve. I mean, they have powerful alumni. That goes for Howard. That goes for Morehouse. All these other, notable HBCUs. But not even just relying on them because of their success and things like that. I mean, on average, I think most HBCUs graduate anywhere, at least a couple hundred graduates each semester. Even if you're just giving $100 a year, you times that by 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 alumni each year consistently. These schools should never have an issue with funding. But, it's also not, and I think this is something that, us being HBCU graduates and you, Dr. Pitts, already being a parent, something that says parents have to do is let their kids know, because I've heard this plenty of times before. When kids get student loans, they sit there and think, oh, well, why would I give the school any more money when I've given them student loans? Well, no, the school didn't give you those student loans. The government did. Right. So you're paying the government back. You're not paying the school. The school used that money just to stay open and just have stuff for you. They need your money in order to continue to grow and advance. But we have this mindset of, well, I got student loans. I can't afford to pay the school too.
Ronnie, you're fading in and out really bad.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you were fading away like somebody was dragging you away from the microphone.
They knew I was talking that real.
Right. I was like, where's he going?
But no, it's going to take, especially, first generation HBCU graduates like me, Jared, and all the other alumni who are graduating now who are first generation college students. So when we have children and, definitely talk to them about going to HBCUs, letting them know that, our donations and sacrifices now as adults and graduates is going to help you when you get to these HBCUs to help you, and you continue that trend as well. Because a lot of these white families who go to PWIs, that's what they teach their kids. That's what they do. They teach them the importance of donating back to their schools when they leave.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to get my cousin to go to HBCU. She's looking at VCU and I believe Norfolk State. But on that topic, though, while we're talking about the PWIs and the benefits of going to HBCU over PWI, and back to the topic of the other self, do you believe that going to an HBCU actually enhances the student athlete's chances and helps them find their other self while they're actually on that campus versus going to a PWI like you guys just mentioned? Basically, your education at a PWI, the top football program, your education is football. It's not sociology, psychology. It's not business. So do you think that going to a PWI hinders them from finding their other selves while they're on campus and post-athletics compared to an HBCU, and the nurture that you can get if you allow it as a student-athlete at an HBCU?
Can I speak to that first, Ronnie?
Sure, go ahead. Take it away.
I'm sorry. So I think, keeping this in a solution-focused vein, I'm not going to say that going to a PWI is going to hinder them from finding their other selves. I think going to an HBCU enriches the likelihood of them being able to do it more effectively because of the cultural piece. We are cultural beings, and the reality of it is that cultural component is not going to be there to the degree that it would be at an HBCU. When you all think about your experiences going to an HBCU, let's face it, MLK celebration is very different in those settings. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Kwanzaa or whatever cultural things that we do. I think about the years that I was the director of catering at FAMU, and we did FAMU Day at the legislature. And you talk about a big major event that occurs at FAMU every year. Well, we literally, members from administration and what have you, went to FAMU, went to the legislative building for things, and I got to cater there in the whole 9 yards. I think it's very different. We have a caller. I'm thinking we may have said something. I'm gonna let this caller come in.
Good.
Caller
Good
00.
afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Man, I love the conversation today. I love
Hey,
the conversation.
Oh, I know that voice.
Happy anniversary!
My
Happy anniversary!
Thank you. You triggered something for me. You definitely did when you were talking about just that cultural component that the HBCU brings. And I teach at Virginia State. Ronnie is one of my students, and I was talking to my students this week about just the difference from where we grew up, Dr. Pitts, in Salem, which has a very strong black population, so it does have that black culture. But that HBCU is just on a different level. And I jokingly say that when I went from Salem, New Jersey to my HBCU, it truly helped me discover my other self, just in keeping with your topic. The sky opened up, the harps were playing. It was such a welcoming atmosphere, and it allowed me to be Brian Maiden as opposed to that black man. So for my first few years there, I did not think about being a black man. It allowed me to develop who I was, without the constructs and confines of the majority society. So it is a protective environment. I love the fact that we are so diverse. One of the things that I've heard as a former school counselor, I was a school counselor for 18 years, from parents was, I want my kids to go somewhere where there's diversity. Now, y'all know that black folk are very diverse people.
Right.
We are truly diverse. So you're not going to get just the black experience. You're going to get many black experiences there. You're going to get many experiences in general. So it's not as limited as the stereotype that many people believe. So it is truly a cultural awakening.
Yeah. We love you, B.
Love you too. Thank you for the minute.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you calling in, Dr. May.
All right, appreciate it.
All right. Take care, y'all.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. I like what he said, how black people are diverse, and just because you go to a HBCU where it's full of black people, is many different layers to it. And then also being around a campus where it's a lot of educated black people, that's like I mean, that in itself is amazing. I mean, the intellectual, levels that a lot of my peers were on and that I see them doing now post-graduation, I mean, I can't do nothing but smile and be happy and applaud them. So I definitely agree with Dr. Megan.
And, and speaking of the academic piece of the HBCU, because I can't tell you for how many years I've heard, people, joke or dismiss the education you get at a HBCU. And specifically in, the Central Virginia area, with Virginia State and Virginia Union being the only two HBCUs in this area, I would take both of my degrees against any PWI educated person in the country any day of the week, any day of the year. I would take my education against theirs and won't even hesitate, because just because you go to a big school in Virginia like Virginia Tech or James Madison or George Mason or whatever the case may be, my education was valuable. There are very talented and very educated professors on these HBCU campuses.
Wow. It is, and I will tell you, I believe in being transparent. The stereotype initially was something that I fell for. I remember my junior year and senior year in high school when, as a family, we were trying to decide where I was going to go. And my mom, my stepfather, my grandparents, and my uncles in particular were adamant about me going to an HBCU. And I didn't want to go to an HBCU. And I said, and I was a kid, y'all, so don't even judge me or criticize me. I said, if I want to be around a whole bunch of black people all the time, I'll go to a family reunion. That's what I said.
That's what it is. It's like a family reunion.
And of course, they gave me the face and threatened to slap me. But that was the level of ignorance and immaturity that I was at the time. I just didn't understand how robust an experience it would be. And because I went into Howard University as a freshman with a closed mind and a closed heart, I missed out on so much. Now, clearly I had a great experience in the undergrad school that I transferred to that was predominantly Caucasian. However, as fate would have it, and I've shared with you all, because I got pregnant with Andre at 19 years of age and had to put my education on the back burner, I finished very slowly. So I ended up earning my bachelor's degree from Edward Waters College, which is an HBCU in Jacksonville, Florida. Even as an adult learner coming back, I was so excited to be on campus every day, to be able to interact with my professors, and because they viewed me, as a colleague too. No, by the way, I was feeding them. So it's like, it was this dual, phenomenal, culturally enriching experience that I had robbed myself of as a teenager coming out of high school because of my ignorance and my immaturity and the fact that I bought into that stereotype. So as Dr. Maiden said, don't sell yourself short by thinking that because you're going to be on a campus that's an HBCU, that somehow that's going to avoid your opportunity to experience diversity. There are plenty of white folks and other ethnic groups that go to HBCUs. It is a melting pot that provides this extraordinary opportunity for a culturally enriching and holistic diverse experience that I think that our young people could benefit from. And on that point, when I think about when I was teaching high school and how much of our history children of color were lacking. Well, why are they lacking? They're lacking because history is not our story. We're not taught in the history books that are in the public school system today that demonstrate the true essence, the true robustness, the true sacrificial nature of us as a people. Children today don't realize that this nation was built literally on the backs, the blood, the sweat, and the tears of our ancestors. And it reminds me of when I was doing a lot of motivational and inspirational speaking in the Deep South. And I was driving from Savannah to, I think I was going to Augusta one time for a speaking engagement. And I kid you not, I was riding down the road. It was at night, and the hair stood up on the back of my neck. And I got goosebumps. And I'm like, oh, my God. Mm-hmm. And I called my mom from my cell phone, and I was crying. And she was like, baby, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I said, Mommy, and yes, I'm about to be 53, and I still call my mom Mommy. But I said, Mommy, I'm driving through a road that's going through cotton fields of Georgia, and I got this distinct feeling to the core of my being that I could hear the blood-curdling screams of slaves. And you talk about something, and I'm getting chills and filled up just telling you guys about it. It was such a powerful experience. That history is not discussed at a predominantly white school. It's not discussed in our high schools. They gloss over all of the inventions and the contribution of mighty men and women of black and brown hue in this nation that make this nation what it is. That's the cultural enriching perk of going to an HBCU. As you gentlemen stated, the homecoming experience, the Spirit Week and all that goes into that week leading up to homecoming, and the things that go up to, in preparing for commencement, and there's just so much day-to-day camaraderie that exists on an HBCU campus within the context of family, I might add, that I believe that for many of these children who are not being enriched in their family of origin and in their community of origin, to attend an HBCU could enrich who they are as a black and brown human being on the face of this earth. And I think in these times, that experience is paramount. Y'all got quiet?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Go ahead.
What'd you say?
I said y'all got quiet on me.
I know. Felt like I was, in the classroom at HBCU listening to a teacher drop some knowledge.
That was very powerful, Dr. Pitts. I'm just over here just agreeing with everything you're absolutely saying.
Let's we're over time, but that's okay. Let's take about 10 minutes so that we can wrap up this discussion. I don't want to close us out today without really giving our listeners some insight as to some great strategies that they can implement for post-athletics within the context of career exploration and how they can add value to themselves as they're making this transition and adjustment to not being an athlete anymore.
Right. So when it comes to a career, I think one thing you have to look at is time. I know a lot of people say, time stops for no man, things like that. But I think you got to get to a point where you realize that you do have time. It's not like you have to find your career in 3 months. You know what I'm saying? And, this is my career. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. You got to use your youth to your advantage. A lot of guys finish playing and if you go to college, say you're 22, 23, if you go to the league, maybe you're 27 years old, you still have a lot of time left where you can you can take a year and you can try multiple things. You can put, 110% effort into one thing for 3 months. See if you like it. See if it's what you really are interested in going forward with. And if it's not, try something else. You could look up in the years going by, you've now explored 4 different opportunity career paths, and it's only been a year. And you have, good health, 60, 70 plus years left of your life. So I think we have to stop feeling pressured into finding what it is you want to do immediately. And then the other thing is getting involved in internships on your college campus or outside of your college campus in that city, using your leverage as an athlete to get into those doors. I think those are some of the major key points to, have success in finding your other self, finding a new career post-athletics.
I want to read.
Definitely great advice. Go ahead, Dr.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead, Ron. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to add just a couple more things just to what Jared was saying. One of the things I would definitely tell student athletes when they're getting ready to graduate is definitely, because, like we've talked about the last several weeks, unfortunately, HBCUs necessarily don't focus on this unless you're a business or finance major, but hopefully they'll make this across the board. But definitely start to learn on your own how money and finances work. And don't fall into that rat race that, most young people fall into after they graduate where, I've graduated now, I can go get out here and get me a new car, new place to live. And now not only do you have student loan debt, but you also have a mortgage payment or, you have a car loan payment and you're working minimum wage jobs and working, 60, 70 hours a week just trying to make those ends meet, and you're not happy with yourself. And like we always say, definitely understand what's going on in the world and understand that a lot of these degree opportunities that are present at schools might not translate to a successful career as far as being able to provide for your family or to, be able to provide for yourself and have, maintain a level of lifestyle that you choose. So, definitely understand finances. Definitely make sure that whatever degree you are getting in school, it can translate to some type of opportunity after school. Those would be 2 of the things I would recommend.
And then lastly, my recommendation is, and I said it on a previous show, to take a career inventory assessment. There's free ones out there, but they're not as comprehensive. If I had to recommend a paid one, I would suggest taking the ones for Myers-Briggs, which they're the intelligent quotient folks. They're the ones that help us to assess what our IQ is. The Myers-Briggs assessment can give you some insight, not just about your personality, but also your personality within the context of career exploration. Or you could also hire me to teach you how to define that.
There you go.
Can go to my website. You can go to my website at drlaurendpitts.com and schedule an appointment to do a free consultation with me, and let's have a discussion and see whether or not you hiring me as your individual and or family or team empowerment coach is something that you would find effective. I believe that you would absolutely benefit from the services that I offer. So, I invite you to go to my website, drlaurendpitts.com, and click on the services page and check out the services that are available and see if it's something that you, your family, your significant other, or your team can benefit from. We welcome that opportunity. Well, folks, wow, it has been yet another powerful discussion today, just full of so much information that we hope is contributing to the transformation of your life. As we said before, we know you care about these discussions, and we absolutely want to hear from you during the show. You can always call us live during the show at 515-605-9744. You can email us at htpregame@gmail.com. Do not forget to download the Heritage Sports Radio Network app from the App Store, because we are on HSRN now, at 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. every Saturday. So honored to be a part of that family now. And then, should you decide that these conversations are as important to you as we believe that they are, and you want to hear these conversations continue and to grow to larger platforms, you can send a gift via sponsorship in whatever amount you can afford by visiting drlaurendpitts.com and clicking on the donate button, or you can email us at htpregame@gmail.com to receive a sponsorship packet. Don't forget, I want you to make sure that if you're in the Virginia area in the 804 zip code, to check out Ronnie for your mental health needs and his agency. He works for 2 phenomenal agencies that would be more than happy to provide mental health services to you. All you have to do is contact them and request Ronnie as your clinician. We want to make sure that we are able to get you connected directly with him. If you're in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, we want you to check out Jared if you are interested in buying or selling a home. And we also want you to purchase his book, From Cleats to Loafers. If you're in the Atlanta area, listeners, we want you to check out Andre Garlick at Landmark Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Morrow, 6850 Mount Zion Boulevard in Morrow, Georgia. It's 15 miles south of Atlanta on I-75 South. That's all we have for you today, folks. We are so excited, and we look to have you call in next Saturday at 11 a.m. on House Talk Pregame on Blog Talk Radio and Heritage Sports Radio Network. Until then, have a great Saturday, a safe Halloween, and we'll check you out next weekend.